All right, what's going on, YouTube? This is Dynasty Warzone Injury Report. I am your host, Matty Big Chest, and I am here with a fantasy gamer. His name is Dr. Kyle. He is my man. What's going on, Kyle? How are you doing today?
This is how I'm doing.
Yeah, after a bloodbath in week 2, that's how you're feeling. Got to get your coffee in for these reports because there's a lot of news we got to break.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be waivers is going to be brutal this week, throwing guys on IR and Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we got our work cut out for us, but let's get right into it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, man, I feel like David Montgomery after he got flipped on his head. That's how I feel right now. Poor guy, man.
Yeah, that was some move.
Yeah. So let's talk about Jimmy
That
Garoppolo.
looked like football parkour.
It was, dude. Let's actually talk about our merch. We got some Dynasty Warzone merch. We partner with Viridian Global. You can find us on Google. Just Google Viridian and Dynasty Warzone, and you'll find our collection. It's a very nice, clean collection. We got hoodies, we got tanks, we got T-shirts, and we have more coming. So we have a phase 2 of merch coming as well. So look out for that. You excited for it, Kyle?
I need some DWZ swag.
Dude, I'm excited. I can't wait to be wearing it when I'm recording. But yeah,
Dude, right now I just look like your typical PT. I want to look like the DWZ PT. So soon enough.
hey, we got it. We got it here coming. All right, let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's called week to week. What happened?
High ankle sprain. So we now are quite familiar with this. I talked about it a little bit with our Mike Thomas report last week. Michael Thomas, not to be confused with Mike Thomas, who might be your pickup of the week off of the Bengals. But Jimmy G, high ankle sprain. So the implications here is Jimmy G, quarterback, not our most mobile quarterback, not a Deshaun Watson or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. So I think he has a chance to return sooner than somebody like a Michael Thomas or Christian McCaffrey, who we'll get to, will be. So as far as fantasy fallout, I think you're not doing anything with Jimmy G. You're not panicking or overreacting. He's actually looked decent from a fantasy perspective in the first 2 weeks. I just look forward to seeing him with all of his weapons when he's back, hopefully, because we got a couple more Niners on this list to get to. But what are you doing with Jimmy G?
I'm gonna be avoiding Jimmy G, but there's some weapons I like on that offense that with this short passing attack that's going to be coming with Jimmy G because he's not going to have time to hold the football. I think we're going to see Brandon Ayuk with some quick screens. I think Brandon Ayuk is a sneaky buy in dynasty leagues right now. Maybe a pickup if he's on the waiver wire in your fantasy leagues. So Brandon Ayuk is the name that I think is good. He was given number 11 by Kyle Shanahan, the guy who coached Julio Jones. There's a reason why he gave him a number 11 as well. I think we're going to see a lot of Ayuk.
I look forward to that. He's dynamic.
He's very dynamic. It's just he hasn't gotten the chance. And similar to not getting a chance, Reggie Bonifan, Christian McCaffrey. What's happening with Christian?
Yeah. Speaking of dynamic and speaking of high ankle sprains, McCaffrey, high ankle sprain. I hope he can go against the grain with this injury, as we've seen in the past, how it hobbled Kamara and Barkley a bit the rest of the season last year. People are throwing stats out about fantasy points before and after ankle sprains, high ankle sprains specifically in a season. So the outlook might not be great, but McCaffrey does look superhuman at times. But I wouldn't expect him to push back onto the field anything short of 3 weeks. I don't know when the Panthers' bye week is, but if it's in the first half of the season, perhaps they try and tread without him until then. They're the Panthers. I don't know if we see them contending at all this year. He's their franchise guy. Just signed him to a big, gigantic contract last year. So no sense in putting him back on the field too soon with something serious like a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, as the CMC owner, I would hope that they just let him rest for 4 to 5 weeks. I want to see him healthy. I want to see him playing for the fantasy playoffs. I've got insurance for him. I made sure I insured him in the start of the season because if you have a talented back like this, you need to insure him with someone who's not his backup. You need to get someone like an Antonio Gibson to fill in this role because he's someone that gives you value outside of just a handcuff. So, I mean, I would be looking at Reggie Bonifan to be his replacement here. He was on the practice squad. He couldn't play this last game after CMC got hurt, so he's going to get called up, I believe. Mike Davis, he was given the role in Chicago, but he wasn't anything special. So I think that it's going to be the Bonifon show, and he might have a breakout. Who knows? Because he looked good when CMC missed time, or when CMC was given resting time last year. He had like an 80-yard touchdown.
I might break out my bonbons for Reggie Bonifon.
The Cinnabons. But
Cinnabons and bonbons for Reggie Bonifon.
What a week for week 2, man. Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, the 1 and 2 in a 1 QB league. You know, they're both out now.
Yeah, Barkley is done with an ACL. He had a very typical mechanism of injury where I believe it was his right leg into the ground and the tibia externally rotated and caved in. I'll use lay terms, caved in, which is just typical ACL mechanism of injury. And the way he reacted to it when he was down, I knew in that moment it was his ACL, and MRI confirmed it yesterday. And so, yeah, implications there. I have Barkley in a pretty big dynasty league. I have him paired with Jonathan Taylor, so that's Taylor's on the up and up, but maybe Barkley's on the down and down. I might try and move Barkley for a Miles Sanders or a Josh Jacobs plus if I can. I don't know if I'm up for a straight up.
I wouldn't move him for Miles Sanders, but I like the Josh Jacobs call. I think Saquon Barkley is one of those talents that comes back from an ACL tear, similar to Adrian Peterson. He's just
I do
superhuman.
too. He is superhuman, but that Giants offensive line looks subhuman.
It does look it looks subpar. Yeah, I must say that.
Look, going into this season, we knew the Giants were coming up with. They're starting the season with a tough schedule against the run, so let's not overreact. But unfortunate to see Barkley go down so early in the season. Now we have the fallout with Wayne Gallman, Deion Lewis, and potentially Devonta Freeman ending up in that backfield. What are you doing there?
I'm adding the cheapest one possible, and that's going to be Wayne Gallman. I think before Barkley was drafted, Wayne Gallman was the starter. So why can't Wayne Gallman fill in now as the starter? He was good at Clemson. He was good. Like he's a good back. He's a receiving back as well. He can catch the ball. Deion Lewis is just a receiving back in my eyes. So I'm gonna get Wayne Gallman for cheap, and I'm gonna pick him up in redraft leagues as well because I think he's a good stash this week. I'm gonna beat the waiver wire and pick up Wayne Gallman.
I like that. Next, we have Cam Akers, a lot of people's rookie darlings. I don't know if he was ever one of mine. I don't have him anywhere, dynasty or redraft. Separated rib cartilage. I don't know if I've ever heard that terminology, so I don't know if that's coming from doctors or reporters, but he did something to this area of his ribs where the cartilage or where the ribs meet the sternum.
And when you're carrying the football,
very uncomfortable.
Yeah, when you're carrying the football goes right there. So you're going to fall on that all the time.
And helmets are going right there and shoulder pads are going right there. And depending on severity, like the rib cage is, where we house our lungs. So if it's severe, like breathing or deep breathing could be a little uncomfortable. I'm sure the Rams have a way to help him manage his pain if it's not too severe, and that won't be an issue, and adrenaline will get him going. But we saw that from Akers, and then I believe Malcolm Brown injured a finger. So all of a sudden, Darrell Henderson looked like the guy this past weekend and potentially has the makings to be the guy going forward, at least for the short term. But this backfield was so up in the air going into the preseason that I think it was still anybody's for the taking. So what are your thoughts there, Matt?
I was the biggest Darrell Henderson fan when he was coming out of Memphis, and this just feels so good for him to hit in year 2. He looked good. He's a human highlight machine. He had 13 minutes of him not getting tackled. That's insane in college. I think this guy is so talented, and McVay moved up to get him, as well as moving up to get Akers. I don't know what they're doing there, but he moved up to get Darrell Henderson. So I'm going to be getting Darrell Henderson on my benches if I need a running back. I have waiver wire ads. I think I have like 10 ads of running backs in one league just in case I don't get them, like in tiers. Like Darrell Henderson is at the top of my tier.
Agreed.
But yeah,
Yeah, and so
let's
well,
talk about the
the league
receiving
I
cores
have
too.
Barkley. Okay,
Van
let's do that.
Jefferson, I'm sorry, Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Van Jefferson, man. Van Jefferson made some nice grabs. I just wanted to say his name. I really liked Van Jefferson coming out. He looked dynamic. He made a sideline catch where he just laid out, just grabbed it. He like plucked it out of the air, and that's just something that it's impressive. It's impressive when you see it live. I just had to say that.
Yeah, and yeah, no, looked great, but they just signed Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods to long-term extension. So yeah, I guess they'll get Jefferson on his rookie deal and see what happens from there. But interesting stuff happening in the management of the Rams roster these days. But
They're
we'll
just
see the
printing
fallout
money,
of that in
man.
a year or two, I'm sure.
They're printing
Yeah,
money
maybe they know
that I
something we
think
don't.
franchises that have more money can pay more players, I guess. Devonta Adams, man, he was sidelined with a hamstring. What's up?
Yeah, and so the reports sound like it isn't too serious, but the Packers had that game in hand pretty quickly, even though the Lions got out to a good start. Hopefully, it's something that they can manage and doesn't linger too much. Who do the Packers have this week?
I couldn't tell you that,
They
but
have the Saints. They have the Saints.
mm,
Um, so I could see Adams. I would keep an eye on his practice report going into Friday, Saturday. I'd want to see at least questionable and looking probable by Friday to be confident in starting him, because we all know hamstrings can linger, and if you get back too soon, it could just mean delaying the inevitable. And based on how the Saints looked last night, and if Michael Thomas is probably not playing and Drew Brees cannot throw the ball more than 15 yards downfield accurately, I could see the Packers trying to lean on the run game a little bit more and not needing Adams to play that alpha role he's done so well with, especially week one.
oh yeah.
If MVS is out there on your waivers, maybe he's somebody you're throwing some money at. But otherwise, this one is
I
probably just it is what it is, and there's not much we can do right now other than hope Adams gets healthy soon.
I'm covering my logo because it was just such an embarrassing game. I am a Lions fan, so I have to watch that. MVS was targeted a lot, so I think that MVS is the waiver wire addition. Alan Lazard's probably already rostered, so definitely MVS looking at him because I think it was Equanimous St. Brown. He was put on IR, so he's not available.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be MVS and Alan Lazard if Devonta Adams not a go. So if you're a Devonta Adams owner, maybe look at getting MVS because he's the right behind him in the depth chart. But
Great. Good
Packers
call.
look good, man. Packers look good. They're going to win the NFC North. Aaron Jones, man. I thought the Lions couldn't stop the run already, but Aaron Jones embarrassed them. That was upsetting. I was pissed watching that game.
Yeah, they were ripping on the guys on the GM Shuffle podcast were ripping on the Lions defense as much as they were praising Aaron Jones' talent. I think Lombardi loved Aaron Jones leading up to the draft. And yeah,
Pay the man.
embarrassing.
Pay the man. He is worth the money. He is a good player. But speaking about paying the man, Raheem Mostert, he wanted to get paid, but now he's got a knee injury.
Yeah, typical running back, getting all that money and then just going down.
Yeah. What's up?
Probably not a whole lot of guaranteed money. Anyway, Mostert MCL, I think Jesse tweeted at me when this happened. This is probably, depending on severity, but it smells like 2 to 3 weeks, and then he'll probably be good to go. Not a serious one. The MCL is on the outside of the knee joint, so it does heal very well on its own, and there's not usually surgery required, especially in this instance. We know he's not having surgery, at least right now. So Mostert, you're probably just holding him on your bench or your IR for a couple weeks until he's healthy, because we like what we see out of that 49ers backfield. Coleman was the next man up, and guess what he did with that? I think he did this last year too. He became the next man up and then immediately went down with a sprained knee, and he's also out multiple weeks. So who do we have left in this backfield that you like, Matt?
Thank you, Kyle. Jeff Wilson Jr., man. He is one of my waiver additions of the week. He is a touchdown magnet when he plays. He's going to be the guy inside the 20s for the San Francisco 49ers. It's not going to be Jet McKinnon. He's not a goal line back. it's going to be Jeff Wilson or Jermichael Hasty. And I'm putting my money on Jeff Wilson, a guy who's been in the system for 3 years now. And he's got a rapport with Shanahan. He's going to be the guy to fill in the role for, I think, Tevin Coleman role, which is inside the 20s. And then Jet McKinnon is going to be the guy who just gets all the receiving chops, and he's going to get what he gets from Nick Mullins, which is nice. Jared McKinnon, he's going to be expensive though. So do you really want to blow your fab on a guy who's going to be playing for 3 to 4 weeks and then you're going to be benching him again? So I'm gonna put my fab on.
No,
Jeff Wilson.
And look at Jerick McKinnon's timeline as far as like fantasy football relevance goes. He's never been the guy anywhere. He was hyped up as the scat back receiving guy in Minnesota behind Adrian Peterson, I believe, and then signed his big contract and then blew out his knee and has just had trouble getting back onto the field. And so he's never been the guy. Why is he going to be the guy now 4 or 5 years into his injury-riddled career? I love that take. Jeff Wilson's going to be the cheaper guy. And like you said, he's already got some relationship with Shanahan. He probably gets the office a bit more at this point. So, yeah, cheaper and probably more upside from Wilson.
But poor 49ers, man, they had Solomon Thomas, Nick Bosa, and I think there was maybe another defensive player as well. But those are 2 big names on their defensive line that just got lost. So, and their quarterback, like they need to change the field or something, man. Do you think it's the grass there that's doing it to their knees?
There's a lot of speculation as to what it could be. I would say at this point in the year, the best thing or the most realistic thing we could probably point our fingers at is the strange offseason and preseason because it's happening all over the place. We got a couple of 49ers on here. We got a couple of Broncos on here. Memphis and I were discussing on Twitter probably or potentially the role of changing in footwear over the years. Or it's like, statistics are weird. Like it could have just been a weird week and maybe we don't see any ACLs or knee injuries for the next 6 weeks and they all just got clumped into this week. I wouldn't put my money on that one. But I also, there are just so many variables, especially in football. It's such a team sport. There's so many moving parts, day to day, play to play, week to week, etc. But it'll be interesting to see going forward what happens. And, the more data points we have, the more trends we can pick up on. And then teams or players can make changes for next year.
Oh, yeah. Well, you just mentioned a pair of players on this list, Courtland Sutton and Drew Lock, man. I am devastated because I loved Courtland Sutton. I was one of his biggest fans. I was not a dynasty owner of him. Shockingly, even though I'm a big fan, his price was just too high for me. I am just so upset to see him go because I was starting to become a Broncos fan.
Yeah, this one hurts. I had just moved. This was in the preseason. Big Ben and Antonio Gibson for Sutton straight up pre-roster cut down. So it saved me a cut down. Not that it got me anybody exciting to stay on my roster, but it's a clear rebuild. So to add another, I think potentially, top 10 fantasy wide receiver whenever he pops in his career. Unfortunately, it's not going to be this year. And then looking at this year. Coming into this week, I talked about it last week. He looked like he could have played potentially week 1 with that AC joint sprain, and then it looked like he was going to play week 2. And I said, let's look to see maybe a floor wide receiver 2, 3. And before he even had his knee injury, which we'll get to, he had already had 6 targets for 3 receptions and 66 yards. And just
now's the time to buy him.
A guy who just has. Yeah, exactly. Now, I bought him a couple weeks ago when he was a bit more.
You got him at a good price.
I don't think I overpaid for him. I agree. I was happy to make the profit on Gibson and move Big Ben before he dies on my bench. Now I just throw something on the IR and maybe I tease some people with Calvin Ridley or Terry McLaurin and add some draft capital or whatever. But yeah, really unfortunate for Sutton. Right now it's saying he tore up his knee, so that speculates maybe more than just ACL. We'll find out more in the coming days, I imagine, but probably some meniscus involvement and maybe MCL too. Hopefully no arteries, veins, or nerves were severely affected because they can complicate things a bit more. But Sutton's young, and I think we'll see a good bounce back. It's early in the year this year, just like Barkley and all the other ACLs we saw go down, so I think it's optimistic to think most of those guys are close to 100% come start of the season next year.
Oh yeah.
And then the man throwing him the ball, Drew Lock,
Big lock,
got
big lock.
rocked.
Yeah. He's got a big lock.
Big Lock got big rocked. Luckily, like, you know, the hit he took, it looked reminiscent of some Aaron Rodgers or Tony Romo clavicle fractures back in the day, and he avoided that. Just a strained rotator cuff. This is a soft tissue injury, you know, so we're looking at probably anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. It's his throwing arm, so probably on the higher end. It sounds like the Broncos have already signed Blake Bortles to a 1-year deal. I don't know if there's any competition there long term because it seemed like Locke was looking the part up until that moment. But if Bortles can be the guy for at least the short term, that can allow them to get Locke as close to 100% instead of trying to force him back. But, you know, they just went down one of their stud receivers, and now they're they're out with Philip Lindsay or without Philip Lindsay, and now without Locke for a few weeks. And they're looking up at the Chiefs and Raiders are both 2-0 in that division. Not that the Raiders are scary, but I think they surprised some people last night. So what are we doing with this Broncos offense? Are we going to try and buy Jerry Jeudy? Are we adding KJ Hamler?
If I had the space to do it right now, I'd punt a football. Blake Bortles, I think, is the only one. Blake Bortles and Jerry Jeudy are the only ones who I think will be fantasy relevant for this offense with Melvin Gordon, maybe. Dude, it's so hard to say because Blake Bortles, when he plays, he's a dual threat in fantasy for rushing touchdowns, right? So I mean, he was a QB1, I think, for a season or something in Jacksonville. So why not take a chance in a Superflex league and put some fab on him? You know, I'll put 5 on him. You know, I don't know. He's interesting. It's an interesting thing. It's an enigma that we're gonna have to watch it unfold. Jerry Jeudy, I think, is the big name that's gonna be helped out here because they're gonna be throwing short passes, and you know, at Alabama, Jerry Jeudy was good with short passes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm with you. And even if right now you look like a team who looks set at quarterback, don't fall for it. Like I got Mitch Trubisky off of the waiver wire because it was a FFPC startup and they cap you at 3 quarterbacks coming out of the draft. So guys were available with that first waiver run, and I got Trubisky dirt cheap. And so my quarterbacks were Jimmy G, Drew Lock, and Minshew coming out of the startup. And I got Trubisky dirt cheap, so I got four rostered starting quarterbacks going into week 1. And now 2 of them went down this week. So I feel very lucky there. So if you are in Superflex, go get Bortles. He's going to be the guy probably for the next 3 or 4 weeks. We know he can scramble. We know he's got nothing to lose. Like, who's going to scramble more? The guy who's playing for a contract, like Dak Prescott, or the guy who's like just eating bonbons, watching Reggie Bonifon eat Cinnabons on his couch, who's going to be coming in and can play hero for a few weeks. Like that's, and you know, let's not forget about Noah Fant. He's looked really good in the first couple of weeks, and I think
who's that guy? Who's the Lions quarterback back in the day? The John Kitna. This is John Kitna signing, dude. This feels so reminiscent of it, and he's just gonna go out there and have fun with it. And I'm excited for the Denver team. It's gonna be funny to watch, but he's gonna be fantasy relevant, so it's gonna be cool.
I think so too. I'll probably go try and grab him off the waivers in my dynasty leagues.
Yeah, and then the Colts, man.
Anyway,
this is a sad injury. Paris Campbell had a breakout game in week 1, and then he got hurt in week 2, and he wasn't getting up off the field, and like he had to get carted off. But he avoided the ACL, right?
He did, yeah. So one of the other ligaments that's on the inside of the knee. So the outside of the knee, we have the LCL and the MCL. They are on the outside of the joint to protect it on the outside. And then inside the knee, you have the ACL and the PCL that are crossed. The C is cruciate, so they're crossing ligaments. The PCL is the one that's more posterior to the ACL, hence the P, posterior cruciate ligament, and anterior cruciate ligament. But it sounds like he just strained it. So they're saying he's day-to-day. I imagine this is one where they'll have him doing his own sort of drills on the sideline this week, and as he feels comfortable and they feel comfortable having him start running at full speed, we'll see him back. I would not bet on this week, but I think a week from now he'll probably be ready to get back on the field. But the fallout we're seeing from that is Michael Pittman looked like he
Mm-hmm.
could be playing the part. I think he saw a good chunk of snaps once Campbell went down, ran a lot of routes, and looked good. And Mo Alley Cox, without Doyle and
Oh,
Burton on the field, also looked good. So we still have a bit of relevance in Indy, even though Uncle Phil is not looking like Uncle Phil of 5 years ago, but everybody's getting fed a little bit.
oh yeah. I added so much Mo Alley Cox as soon as I heard he was going to play because I just figured he was going to have a nice game. It just seemed Mo Alley Cox and Michael Pittman are those two guys that just seem like Phillip Rivers is loving to throw the ball to. Like he likes tall guys who can run like gazelles. I mean, Michael Pittman's a pronghorn. The dude can start at like 0 to 60. He's like a Ferrari out there as a tall guy. That's going to be something that Phillip Rivers likes to target. I'm also looking at T.Y. Hilton here. He's a similar role to he's a wide receiver there to he's a wide receiver one there. I think Phillip Rivers is going to get a better rapport with him with Paris Campbell out. So I think we're going to see a little bit of T.Y. Hilton mixed in with Michael Pittman Jr. And I'm excited. I'm excited for Michael
Yeah,
Pittman.
yeah. I mean that Colts. I am too. Yeah, another preseason trade I made, which I probably jumped the gun a little early, but moving Kareem Hunt
Mm-hmm.
before he had signed that contract and before we got to see what he was going to do with this Browns offense this year. But I knew I was in it for the long haul, so I didn't want to risk holding on to Hunt too long or potentially he gets in trouble, whatever. But I got Michael Pittman, a future second and a future third out of it. So to see Michael Pittman looking that role so early in the season makes me feel better about that exchange.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Colts look pretty good this week, and I think we're going to see more of that going forward. I think their game against Jacksonville was a bit fluky, as we know those divisional games can be, especially like if you think about where we are as far as guys playing full speed on the field. We're still in the preseason. Like there was no preseason games, but I don't think anybody was playing true football speed football up until week one. So I think this first few weeks are going to be a little bit wonky. But things will start to take off probably in a week or two.
I agree. I think that's a good take. And then, last but not least, let's not forget the man, the myth, the legend, Will
Bonus.
Fuller. Will Fuller. What happened to him? What's the injury? We all know what it is. Reveal it. You don't want to say?
Will Fuller is like Will Emptier at this point. I know that's like the dumbest
That's
joke ever, but
his
we got
hamstring's
another
empty.
hamstring strain for Will Fuller. Yeah, exactly. They're gonna rename the hamstring the Fuller string or the empty string or something like that because this
Mm-hmm.
guy can't avoid him, and he's already been. It's been announced that it looks like he's going to miss a few weeks. You knew going into this year the risk with getting him, and here it is. And I just hope this Texans offense can figure out their identity. They're now without Hopkins 2 games, and they've had tough matchups against the Chiefs and the Ravens, and it doesn't get any easier this week against the Steelers. But they're going to have to figure out a way to get somebody down the field to open up this field for Deshaun Watson to hit guys like Cooks, Stills, and Cobb. It looks like Akins has been the tight end there. They got 2 running backs who can catch the ball. It has all the makings of fantasy relevance. It just hasn't come to fruition yet, and
Mm-hmm.
Will Feller going down does not help that.
No, it does
So
not.
you really just have to hold tight and pray, or whatever you choose to do if praying isn't your thing in fantasy football.
Cross your
But yeah,
fingers.
I think a bunch of holds in Houston. Yeah, exactly. Cross your fingers for the Houston offense having some relevance going forward.
Oh yeah, I in our Patreon we did a pick'em league, and I picked the Houston Texans at like 12th overall on their win loss for the season, and man, that's just been disappointing. Didn't think they'd be this bad. It's hard to
Yeah,
watch.
and I think it is. Yeah, and they haven't. I mean, did they lose games they shouldn't have lost? No, they haven't looked as good as we would have liked them to. I think we would
Hmm.
have liked to see more of a shootout in both of those games. Their backs are officially against the wall going into Pittsburgh in Week 3, already at 0-2, because we know that 0-3 is not the recipe for making the playoffs in the NFL. And Tennessee is already 2-0. The Colts are 1-1 and look much better this week. So yeah, Houston is must win right now.
Is Jacksonville 0-2 or are they 1-1?
They're
I think they
they're
split at
1-1.
1-1,
Who do they?
which
Yeah,
they
because
beat the
they beat
Colts.
the Colts in Week 1.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm drawing a blank on what they
Minshew
did
looked
this week,
good,
but
man. Minshew looks really good. Like, I have a Minshew share, and I'm not moving him yet because this guy has the makings of a franchise quarterback. Like, in the
yeah,
sixth round,
yeah, yeah. Maybe it's
how?
like the next coming of like a Tony Romo or a Tom Brady.
Fingers crossed. Fingers
You know,
crossed.
those guys did not have high draft capital,
No.
and they proved they could do it. And I know our fearless leader Memphis was not a Minshew fan in the offseason
Mm-mm.
and would
He
often
chewed that
compare him
shoe.
to Baker Mayfield as far as like this big personality. But what I saw Minshew doing in the offseason with his hype tapes, like that guy was doing legit workouts. I think Baker Mayfield was eating bonbons and Cinnabons between his year 1 and year 2, whereas Gardner Minshew was doing legitimate sprinting drills and A running, A skipping, things that like I would want my guys to be doing in the offseason. Marquise Brown, that was another one we talked about where Memphis was down on him because and I don't want this to turn into like me hating some of Memphis's takes, but
Hmm.
for face value, like Marquise Brown put on whatever 15, 20, 25 pounds. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe he then did the right things by doing some very advanced plyometric drills uphill to prepare tendons, ligaments, and muscles for this new load that he would have to handle. And I think he's looked the part already. And
Marquise
I think
Brown.
Minshew
Yeah.
looks the part. I think Minshew knows that he is playing for his life. He
Hmm.
knows that if the Jaguars finish, bottom 5 this year, that he's at least going to be competing again next year going into his 3rd year.
Yeah, his
But yeah,
back's
I
against the
love
wall.
that Minshew looks good. Yeah,
I love watching a player
yeah,
with their back against the wall, man. And this guy, he loves to sling the rock, and you just watch him. He's got good form. He's got good footwork, and I don't know how the Jaguars got him in the 6th round. Should have been a second or third round pick with the way he's playing. Like, I don't get it, man. Like, the Jaguars are like intentionally trying to tank, and he's just winning them games. So he's gonna take out the tank, and that's awesome. So I'm all here for
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
everyone thought they were intentionally tanking at the start of the year, and now there's Gardner Minshew, and he's a problem for them. So I'm gonna be buying Gardner Minshew for seconds, 2 seconds if I can, But no one's gonna sell him for that. No one's gonna sell him for that anymore.
I love the tanking talk that comes from like fantasy football Twitter. Like, I fancy myself somewhat competitive, and I like to play flag football. My wife and I go to the bar and like we're playing like shuffleboard. Like, I can't even help but like want to win everything every time. And these guys,
Hmm.
their lives depend on how hard they play. Like, I don't think tanking really exists in pro sports. Like these guys, it is
Did
in
you
their
watch the Falcons
blood
game?
to just. I did, and I should have because I'm a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, the
Why?
Falcons are intentionally tanking. That onside kick, man, that was intentionally taking to me. Uh, that
Yeah,
was
that
that
was
was
that was
hilarious.
something.
That was just not understanding the
I'll take it.
rules or something. I don't get it. It was awesome. That was hilarious to watch. I was watching
Yeah,
the game live because I have Dak Prescott everywhere. That was so nice for
yeah,
me
yeah, yeah.
to watch. So finally got one. I got one win in the pick'em because of the Cowboys. A fluke win, but it was
Nice,
it was great. Yeah,
nice.
play till the whistle. Play till the
In
whistle.
term, exactly. Yeah, and I guess some of the Twitter comments I saw when that video came out was that the guys might not have thought it was going 10 yards,
Hmm.
and also they were talking on the GM Shuffle. I love this podcast because it's just like a straight football perspective. They're not necessarily talking about things with fantasy implications, but they had never seen a Zurline onside kick where he didn't use the tee, so the ball was on the ground the entire time. So there's no ability for a fair catch, and it just looked like it caught everybody so off guard. and it's happening like in a matter of seconds that a lot of these guys are still just like kids. We forget. Yes, you want them to be like this in this situation. You do this, expect this, and execute with this, almost like an
Mm-hmm.
army. But sometimes if you take their free thinking away, not that that's been done, but if it's become so regimented or expected to, they're this like here are all of the onside kicks that we've seen Greg Zuerlein kick in his career, and then he throws one completely different at you, like I might be a little oh shit myself if I was at the top of that line there. But yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
definitely an odd play, but it's going to keep my Cowboys in the hunt for that NFC East title that they're now,
Yeah.
they're now tied with the Washington football team for.
Yeah, the Washington football team, man, they're dangerous this year. Dwayne Haskins, he looked okay. He looked okay. Antonio Gibson, he looked okay. But then Terry McLaurin, our Bay, our Boo Boo, just went bonanza on the Arizona Cardinals.
Run TMC. That's my
Oh yeah,
nickname
run
I gave
TMC.
him on Twitter a year ago, and it will take off at some point. So just make sure you give me credit in the form of
I'll run with it.
a socially distanced high five. Yeah.
All right.
And
Well,
then I guess looking at just a handful of players going into this week. Godwin cleared his concussion protocol. I know we talked about that last week. The late diagnosis, I think, put him behind the ball because it's 6 days minimum to clear that protocol based on the steps to get from one to the next. Galladay, hopefully he can play this week because I think Stafford could use his big weapon. Not that they've been able to score some points, but it sounds like Matt Patricia has they talked about how they've sort of come and gone in waves with that team, and they need to find a little bit more stability, which I agree, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Give Stafford a chance.
for a defensive
Jalen
coach, man,
Rager
he's a clown. I'm
he is a
sorry.
clown. Yeah. No, and again, the GM shuffle is talking about how he's made them. They're just like they're obviously not the Patriots, but Patricia is now in Detroit coming from that Belichick tree, and
Mm-hmm.
he's just bringing in these expatriates that Belichick didn't want, and it's just not working out, and he thinks that the locker room is probably a little bit fed up with him just bringing in expatriates, and here we are, like I think they're talking about the last 4 Alliance coaches. Jim Caldwell is the only one to win more than 10 games in his first 24. I think Jim Schwartz was like, or first 34. I think Jim Schwartz was 10-24. I forget who was between Schwartz and Caldwell, and then here Patricia is, I believe, 24 games into his tenure, and he's only got 9 or 10 wins.
I believe it went
Um,
Schwartz to Caldwell. I believe you're right there.
maybe it was somebody before Schwartz then,
It
who
was,
also
yeah,
struggled, but yeah,
Marinelli or
perhaps it's time
somebody.
for, I believe, yeah, Bob Quinn is the GM in Detroit, correct?
Yeah, and Bob Quinn has done a good job of getting talent, but his free agency signings is what concerns everybody the most. And yeah, you're right. I think they need to just clear that front office. Who like if they do that, Stafford is screwed. Like that hurts Stafford. They got
Yeah,
to
maybe he ends up somewhere where he's happier though.
yeah, maybe Indy. But yeah,
I
let's
was I was thinking about this today with Stefan Diggs. Like everybody, it seemed faded Stefan Diggs because he was going to play with Josh Allen in Buffalo. And I like it's funny that like yeah, I'm sure like some people had takes like, oh, Josh Allen throws the ball downfield, Diggs is downfield receiver, but still like the wide receiver in a new offense. And to not just like for face value think Stefan Diggs was immediately in a better situation because Josh Allen's probably a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins, especially at this point in their careers.
can we
And
not
now
talk
he's
about
ripping
Kirk
it up. So,
Cousins?
well, can we talk about our
Oh
DWZ
man.
Patreon 4 trade where you gave me Stephon Diggs and a second for Michael Gallup, and I was like, yeah, I'll smash accept that, even as much as I love Gallup.
Yeah, no, I had Dak Prescott and I was trying to get a stack there. So I definitely overpaid at the start of the season. And I was like, young talent, I have to give up a little more. And then I was wrong.
Yeah, but Gallup still looks the damn part, man. That guy
Oh,
is
yeah.
he is a downfield animal. At some point, he's gonna pop, or
Hmm.
Cooper's gonna go down, and it's just gonna be CD Lamb and Gallup.
Yeah.
Not that I want Cooper to go down. I'm a Cowboys fan. To see all 3 of those guys out there, I think Dak
Amari
wakes up
had that
when he gets
one-handed
Christmas every morning.
snag. That one-handed snag by Amari was nice.
Oh, I didn't even
But
see that. I'll have to go watch some highlights.
but yeah, man. Unfortunate week 2. A lot of injuries. Let's hope week 3 is less of a bloodbath. And we'll see you
Yeah,
next week on the DWZ Injury Report with Dr. Kyle. You can find him on Twitter
got
at
it.
DWZ_Dr. PT.
Right over here.
Oh yeah, it is. Yep. Follow him.
Thanks, Matty.
He's got plenty of helpful tips coming out on Twitter throughout the week that he doesn't post here because he needs a live reaction. So if you want that, you got to follow him on Twitter. All right, boys. Hope you all have a good weekend. Later.